Her daughter left her at the airport, with no luggage, no cash, and no explanation. Marianne Clark, retired paralegal and widow, didn't chase the boarding gate. Ava, her only child, and that grinning husband of hers flew off like she was baggage. By the time their return flight landed, every joint card was frozen and every auto payment revoked. She'd helped them buy a home, now she was locking the front door. And when they came looking for sympathy, the fraud alert would speak first. Before we begin, may I ask, where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Joyce Franklin adjusted the strap of her canvas shoulder bag as the SUV coasted into the drop-off lane outside Charlotte Douglas International Airport. The morning sun was already stretching long, humid fingers across the blacktop, and the air smelled faintly of jet fuel, exhaust, and distant cinnamon from an airport kiosk she couldn't quite see. Tyler barely let the car stop before putting it in park. "Just hop out here, Mom. I've got to swing around and find long-term parking. You're slowing things down. We're tight on time." Before Joyce could respond, Monica turned her head from the front seat, flashing a brisk smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "We'll be right back. Keep your phone on you." Ava, headphones in and hoodie drawn tight despite the summer heat, didn't look up from her screen. Joyce nodded, more out of habit than agreement, and stepped onto the curb with one careful foot, then the other. Her shoes clicked softly against the pavement. She started to reach back into the car for her suitcase, but the door had already slammed shut. The SUV pulled away like a paper boat caught in a fast current. She stood there for a moment, blinking at the back of the vehicle as it disappeared into the stream of traffic. A wave of warmth flushed across her neck. She patted her purse instinctively, checking for her passport. The pouch was flat. Her heart dipped. She stared down the road, expecting the car to circle back any second, maybe with Tyler waving sheepishly from the driver's seat. Any second now. But the minutes passed. Then more. And the seconds, they didn't just tick, they dragged. 20 minutes later, Joyce was still standing in the same spot. She pulled her phone from her purse and dialed Tyler's number. Straight to voicemail. She tried Monica. No answer. She tapped out a simple message, her fingers steadier than she expected. "Still at curb. My bag is with you. Passport too." The message was marked delivered, but nothing came back. She moved to a nearby bench under the shadow of an overhang and sat down, careful to tuck the edge of her blouse beneath her. Travelers ebbed and flowed around her, fathers snapping impatiently at toddlers, women wrestling over stuffed carry-ons, business people striding with sleek leather duffels. The world was in motion. She was the only one left behind. An hour passed, then another. Her phone battery dropped below 30%. She plugged in her travel charger, thankfully in her purse, and wrapped her sweater tighter around her shoulders. The hum of idling engines and the buzz of voices began to blend into a strange sort of silence. Eventually she rose and walked inside the terminal. The air-conditioned chill hit her skin like a subtle slap. She wandered toward the departure board and found their flight. Charlotte to Miami, 9:10 a.m., gate A12, still listed as on time. She stood near the check-in counter, watching the monitor change. Boarding! Then, a few minutes later, gate closed. And finally, in flight. That's when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Tyler. "Sorry, it was too late. Enjoy the week at home?" Joyce read the sentence 3 times. The words were casual, careless. That question mark was the part that struck hardest, as if he genuinely wasn't sure what she'd make of it, as if she were a backup plan they'd chosen not to pack. Her grip tightened around the phone, not from panic, but from something more bitter and older than that, something she hadn't felt in years. She wasn't mad, not quite, but there was a clarity blooming inside her chest, cold and sharp and unmistakable. They had made a choice, one that confirmed what she had quietly suspected for some time now, that she was no longer family, not really. She was infrastructure, someone to be used, then set aside, and this morning, her value had expired at the curb. She walked slowly through the terminal toward the exit, each step measured and even. Outside, the heat greeted her again, unapologetic and steady. She paused at the taxi stand but didn't move toward it yet. Instead, she took out her phone once more, opened the airline app, and pulled up the family's shared travel information. Her name was still linked to their reservations, their credit cards, their hotel, their rental. She stared at the screen for a long moment. Then her lips, previously sealed in stillness, curved into something not quite a smile. "Let's see how far you get without me," she said softly. And with that, she turned and began to walk. Not lost, not stranded, but calculating. Joyce sat at the edge of her bed, the late afternoon sun casting long slats of light across the hardwood floor of her quiet single-level home in Matthews, North Carolina. Her shoes rested by the front door, abandoned in haste, and the faint hum of cicadas outside was the only sound interrupting the silence. She hadn't turned on the TV, not yet. There was something sacred about stillness when you're gathering your thoughts before the first move. The laptop on her desk chirped to life with a soft chime. She opened it carefully, not rushed, not hesitant either. The desktop was clean, save for one folder marked Family Accounts. She clicked it open with the same steady precision she'd once used to debug mainframes, back when code was green on black and people still respected the term administrator. She opened the first spreadsheet, something she hadn't touched in over a year. Joyce had co-signed on half a dozen things over time. Tyler had insisted it was just to help their credit, just until they got on their feet after Ava was born. That was 15 years ago. There they were. Each line, each login, each linked account. She hadn't realized how many were still active in her name until now. Vacation Plus Platinum. Primary, Joyce Franklin Suncoast Travel Miles. Primary, Joyce Franklin Easy Ride Car Rental. Insured driver, Joyce Franklin. Her fingers paused over the trackpad. Monica always liked to act like she ran everything, booked the vacations, managed the details, controlled the aesthetics. But it had been Joyce who filled out the applications, Joyce who used her spotless credit, Joyce who signed as guarantor. Monica had always treated it like a favor already paid back in folded laundry and passive-aggressive compliments. On her phone, a notification popped up from Instagram. Monica had posted again. The preview showed a filtered beach scene. 3 drinks, a pool float, Ava's feet kicked up lazily at the edge of a lounger. The caption read, "Family only, just us this time." Joyce stared at the words. The gall of it. The precision of that caption, like a blade dressed in emojis. She minimized the post and opened a browser tab. With careful keystrokes, she logged into the Vacation Plus account. It loaded slowly, a thin progress bar crawling like time itself. Once in, she clicked on card settings and scrolled to the bottom. Freeze card, are you sure? She checked the box. Possible fraud. Then clicked confirm. Immediately, a fraud alert email pinged her inbox. She forwarded it to Greg Marks, her financial advisor of nearly a decade, a man who had never once spoken to her like she was past her prime. She typed, "Hi Greg, need to temporarily freeze a few travel-linked cards. I'm still primary. Family may attempt access. Can we do this without full account closure?" His reply came fast. "Absolutely. Legally? Yes. Quietly? Absolutely. Want me to put a flag on the airline card too?" Joyce smiled just slightly. She typed back, "Yes. And the rental insurance. And let's start the process of removing me from anything I don't want to be part of anymore." She sat back in her chair, her fingers folding into each other, thumb to thumb like a steeple. Outside, the sprinklers in her neighbor's yard ticked to life. The mist carried over into her hedges. A subtle, cooling hiss filled the air. She opened the airline portal next. Her mouse hovered over the mileage status tab, and she stared for a moment at the glowing banner celebrating Monica's recent upgrade to preferred boarding. A tier only earned by Joyce's flying history, her loyalty, her points. Monica had used that to book this trip. They all had. Joyce clicked on Remove Authorized Travelers. One by one, she unchecked their names. No confirmation was needed, just a final click. She picked up her phone and opened the group text thread labeled Franklin Family Travel Tropical Airplane. Her last message, still unread. The little typing bubble appeared just then, from Monica. "Hey, weird alert just popped up on the travel card. Can you check?" Joyce didn't type back. Instead, she opened a new browser tab and began reviewing her digital footprint with them. What she had given, what she had allowed, what she had tolerated under the banner of being supportive. Because now, for the first time in years, the support had been lifted, and what stood in its place was the unmistakable sound of control, clicking back into her hands like a baton she had never truly surrendered. She opened the final spreadsheet marked contingencies. Then she started checking boxes. The phone tree for the airline was as convoluted as Joyce remembered. Half a dozen automated menus, all politely apologizing for the inconvenience they were about to extend. She sat at the small glass table in her breakfast nook, a legal pad open beside her, a black pen angled carefully across the ruled lines. The sunlight had shifted from gold to dull silver, casting faint shadows over the tile floor. Outside, a neighbor's lawnmower coughed to life. Joyce didn't flinch. "Thank you for holding," a customer service agent finally said. Her voice was chipper, too bright for the subject at hand. "Can I have the name and confirmation code again?" Joyce read it off without hesitation. "Joyce Franklin, code ZL9N2J. She could hear the clack of keys on the other end. A moment later, the woman cleared her throat. "Looks like that flight did depart, and yes, your checked bag was scanned onto the aircraft." Joyce leaned forward slightly. "And it was not removed at departure?" "No, ma'am. It arrived in Miami and was picked up along with the rest of the group's luggage. There it was. Not lost, not delayed, taken. Just like everything else they assumed they had the right to claim." Joyce scribbled a few short words on the legal pad. "Bag arrived. Not removed." "Thank you," she said, then added before hanging up, "I'll need documentation of that for a formal claim." She didn't wait for the agent to protest. She ended the call and opened a new tab on her laptop, this one for the beach resort Monica had name-dropped 2 weeks ago in passing, like a flex dressed as casual conversation. Joyce had remembered. She always did. It only took a few clicks to find the number. A guest services coordinator answered, her voice syrupy with rehearsed charm. "I'd like to confirm something," Joyce said crisply. "My name is Joyce Franklin. A reservation was made under my son's family name, using credentials I'm still financially linked to. I need to know who is authorized to use the suite key." There was a pause. "I'm sorry, are you asking to access—" "No," Joyce interrupted, polite but firm. "I'm not trying to access anything. I'm asking you to confirm that no one should be." The woman hesitated. "I'll need to consult management and call you back." "Fine," Joyce said, already halfway through filing the next form, baggage tampering and unauthorized use, on the airline's site. Each field she filled felt like laying another brick in a quiet, irreversible wall. The house phone rang just as she was scanning her signature. It was Marcia. "Did you kill them?" her older sister asked, not as a joke, but with an undercurrent of actual concern. "Not yet," Joyce replied, a dry laugh catching at the edge of her voice. "I'm just letting the systems they rely on do what they were built to do." Marcia paused. "You okay?" Joyce looked down at the pad beside her. Under the airline notes, she had started a list. 2013 tuition wire transfer, 2015 Honda cosign, Ava's braces, HOA dues, rental furniture, each entry like a bead on a rosary of forgotten gratitude. "I'm about to be fantastic," she said, her tone steadier than it had been all week. She hung up gently, then reached for the folder labeled Family Expenses, Archive. It had been sitting in the bottom drawer of the credenza for years, fat with manila envelopes, printed statements, and signed authorizations. She opened it with reverence, like a time capsule she was finally ready to understand in full. Joyce laid the documents out one by one across the table. Her name, full, legal, appeared on nearly every page. Each signature was her own. The weight of that evidence wasn't sad. It was clarifying. Proof that she had built the house they now claimed as theirs. Financially, legally, logistically. Line after line, signature after signature, Joyce had been the scaffolding behind their climb. And now she was reclaiming every inch of it. She snapped a photo of one particularly damning statement: Tyler's college tuition reimbursement, requested as an emergency but never repaid, and filed it into a new encrypted folder on her desktop. Leverage arrow active. Outside, the cicadas fell silent for a moment, as if nature itself had taken pause. Then a ding. Another notification. Ava had posted to her story a photo of her legs in the pool, captioned, "Sun, salt, and no stress." Joyce watched the text disappear with a swipe of her finger. She picked up the next document, her pen poised to underline something crucial. But before she began, she whispered to herself, almost amused, "They don't even realize what they packed." The cursor blinked in steady rhythm as Joyce hovered over the user dashboard for Easy Ride Rentals. The login had been easy. She'd set up the family profile herself years ago when Tyler insisted it was just a backup account in case his own card flagged again. She hadn't thought about it much at the time. That was the thing about being useful. People got used to you doing things until you were invisible doing them. She clicked into the reservation. There it was, sitting neatly in the itinerary. Mid-size SUV, reserved under Monica Franklin. Primary insured driver, Joyce Franklin. Joyce adjusted her reading glasses and scrolled down to the vehicle terms. Monica had added herself as a driver last year. She wasn't supposed to. Joyce's permission was still required as primary, and now that oversight would cost her. She clicked, "Remove authorized driver," and waited for the green confirmation message to appear. "Driver Monica Franklin has been removed from this reservation. Please update usage with company personnel." Done. She toggled to the Report Issue tab and began a new incident report. Vehicle was removed from pickup location and used without primary driver's consent. Possible breach of insurance agreement? Please contact immediately. Before sending it, she added a single line that she knew would light a fire. Primary policyholder is not present on trip. Then she hit submit. Downstairs, her coffee maker beeped softly. The pot had finished. She poured herself a cup, steam curling up into the kitchen's warm silence. It was funny how little effort it took to reroute power when you had all the original keys. She was halfway through her first sip when the call came through. Not to her, she'd hear about it later, but to the resort, and then, not long after, to Tyler. On a rented pontoon boat drifting along the shallow Florida inlet, Tyler's phone rang over the sound of seagulls and Ava's music thumping faintly through a portable speaker. He answered on speakerphone, sunglasses still perched high on his forehead. "This is Tyler." "Mr. Franklin," the voice on the other end was clipped and professional. "This is Dennis with Easy Ride Rentals. We've been alerted that the current driver of the vehicle associated with your reservation is not an authorized user." Tyler frowned. "What? No, my wife's the one driving." There was a pause. "She's been removed from the rental contract, sir. You'll need to return the vehicle today or risk a breach of insurance terms. If you're unable to do so immediately, we'll need to dispatch a representative to the resort to recover the vehicle." Monica, lounging on a cushioned seat nearby with her phone in hand and sunglasses far too big for her face, sat up straight. "What the hell is that about?" Tyler muted the call. "You've been removed from the rental agreement." Monica blinked at him. "By who?" Ava's voice drifted in from the back of the boat. "What's going on?" Nobody answered her. Tyler stared down at the screen. The call still active, the hold music looping back to the beginning. A sinking sensation moved in his chest, like a tide pulling back hard before something big crashed forward. Back in North Carolina, Joyce's phone buzzed once. A new text from Monica. "Monica, what did you just do?" Joyce didn't open it. She read the preview, then locked the screen and placed the phone face down beside her glass of water. Another ping. "Monica, you're playing a very dangerous game." Joyce picked up the glass and took a slow sip, letting the chill of it run across her teeth before swallowing. The messages stayed unread. Another ping. This one was different. Avenue Ava. "Why is everyone freaking out?" Joyce's lips twitched. Not quite a smile. Closer to recognition. She stood and walked to her office, the house creaking softly beneath her steps. The documents from yesterday were still spread across the desk, methodically sorted into stacks. She didn't sit down right away. She just stood there, looking down at her own handwriting, her own signature, on every single page. They had counted on her silence, but now she had something better than noise. She had documentation, leverage, and time. Outside, thunder rumbled low on the horizon. A storm was finally forming, and she hadn't even touched the airline miles yet. The kitchen printer whirred softly in the background, spitting out a legal-sized form page by page. Joyce stood beside it, calm and deliberate, smoothing each sheet as it landed on the tray. The light outside had dulled to the gray blue of approaching rain, and the thunder from earlier had grown into something more persistent, a slow, rumbling pressure in the air, like change pressing inward from every corner of the sky. She slid the final page into a blue plastic folder labeled Travel Activity Disputed. On the front, a post-it note in her handwriting, Miles not equal to loyalty. Back at her desk, she reopened the airline portal. The interface was sleek, full of travel perks and smiling stock photos of island sunsets and clinking champagne flutes. She ignored all of it. Her attention was on the fine print, the link that said, Request mileage adjustment or review. It asked for a reason. She selected, Account misuse by third party. Under Additional Comments, she typed, Primary status used by attached accounts to receive upgrades, reward transfers, and airport lounge access without travel participation or approval. Monica's name was still attached to the preferred boarding tier, and Joyce's own lifetime mileage total was artificially inflated, bloated by trips she never took, hotels she never slept in, flights she never boarded. She hadn't noticed it all at once, but slowly over the last few years, the upgrades she had earned started appearing in conversations as assumptions Monica made. We'll use your status. You don't mind, right? It helps everyone. Joyce had said nothing. Until now. She selected the Revoke Companion Privileges box, then clicked Submit. Within moments, her dashboard updated. Her mileage tier remained intact, but Monica's access was gone. So was Tyler's, and Ava's. The little badge that had once granted them express check-ins, early boarding, and lounge snacks had been stripped away without ceremony. No alert would go out, no email, just an absence, a hollowed-out space where privilege used to be. Her phone vibrated gently beside the keyboard. Greg. She answered on speaker, folding laundry as she listened. Hey, Joyce. Just circling back. Vacation Plus is deactivated, full shutdown. Took care of the airline card too. 0 balance, your name only. I flagged it for attempted charges just in case. Thanks, she said, flipping a hand towel into a neat square. Can we print a statement showing the freeze date? Already in your inbox. Oh, and just a heads up, if they try to dispute anything through the resort, they'll run into the affidavit wall. You may want to file that preemptively. I'm ahead of you, she said, already walking back to the printer. He paused. I gotta ask, how long have you been planning this? Joyce tilted her head. You mean, how long have I been watching while they thought I wasn't? Greg let out a soft laugh, respectful and low. Right. Well, good luck down there. And call me if they push anything through the banks. Joyce ended the call and slipped the legal travel affidavit into the folder alongside the others. In the right hands, it was just paper, but in hers, it was a perimeter. She checked her messages next. There was one waiting from Marcia. Marcia, I swear this is better than Netflix. You need a theme song. Joyce replied with a photo of the paperwork spread across her desk. A small mug of tea sat beside the documents, steam curling upward in the shape of something triumphant. Joyce, just tightening bolts they never noticed were loose. Then she paused, mid-type, her eyes lingering on the words. She deleted the last sentence and replaced it with nothing. She didn't need to narrate what was happening anymore. Let them feel it, unanswered. She turned her phone screen down again. A knock echoed at the front door. She froze, not startled, but alert, precise, like a machine coming online. No one had texted that they were coming. She walked quietly to the peephole and looked through. The porch was empty. Only an envelope sat at the doormat. Inside was a printed itinerary, Monica's name at the top, Tyler and Ava listed below. Departure 4 days from now. Return, same plane, different class. Her name was nowhere, but the passenger details showed something even more interesting. Each booking number began with her airline account prefix. They were still using her access, still assuming her digital identity was theirs to ride. She stepped back. No panic, no sigh, only something slow and tectonic moving beneath her gaze. She walked back to the printer and pulled out one more form. Request to flag passenger account for unauthorized proxy use. This one required a signature and pen. She uncapped it. Then she signed her name slowly, each letter clean and full. The suitcase sat upright in the hallway like it had never been taken from the curb. Clean, unscuffed, the tag still looped through the handle. J. Franklin in fading print. Joyce had pulled it from the garage this morning, wiped it down with a cloth and vinegar, and packed it deliberately, even though she wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. A change of clothes. Her favorite flats. An extra charger. 2 books, Rules of Evidence and the Art of Quiet Power. The symbolism wasn't lost on her. She zipped it closed, tugged up the handle, and wheeled it to the center of the living room. The room had a lived-in neatness. Nothing perfect, nothing neglected. Just the signs of someone who'd long made space for others and was now reclaiming it. She turned the suitcase slightly to catch the morning light, then set up her phone on the windowsill. The camera timer blinked red. She stepped into frame. No smile, no drama. Just Joyce standing tall in front of the suitcase, hand on the handle, chin angled slightly upward. Her expression was unreadable, dignified but not stiff, the kind of look that dared you to underestimate her one more time. The shutter clicked. She sat back down on the couch and uploaded the photo without filters. She typed the caption slowly, carefully, like every word cost her something, and was worth the price. Left at the airport, not left without options. She hit post. No hashtags, no tags, no audience shaping, just a soft pulse sent out into the digital current. Joyce closed the app and placed the phone on the coffee table. She didn't linger to refresh it, didn't wait for likes or hearts or messages. The point wasn't to get a reaction. The point was to let it exist. She stood and headed to the kitchen. By the time the kettle had whistled and she'd settled back down with a mug of chamomile, the phone had already buzzed 4 times. She ignored it at first, but by the 7th buzz, she checked. The post had been shared, quietly, not viral by influencer standards, but her world had noticed. Former co-workers had commented, a few old students had sent direct messages. Even Karen Winslow, the woman who once blocked Joyce's promotion in the 90s, had replied with a single line, "There's a story behind this, I know it." One message, though, made her pause. It was from Erica Tran. Joyce hadn't heard from her in nearly 2 decades. A former computer science student, now a department chair at some California tech college. The message was short. "Miss Franklin never played dumb. Glad to see that hasn't changed." Joyce didn't reply, but she read it 3 times. Then came the one she expected, though not quite this soon. "Avenue. Why'd you do that?" Joyce stared at the message, the simplicity of it, the entitlement laced in between the words, as if Joyce owed her an explanation, as if public honesty was an act of betrayal. She typed back slowly, each thumb press firm. "Because you didn't speak up." She didn't add a period. She wanted the sentence to hang, unfinished, like the silence Ava had kept when her mother laughed about leaving Grandma behind just for sanity's sake. A few moments passed. Then another message came in, not from Ava, just a silent indicator that she'd deleted her latest Instagram story. Joyce imagined her in the rental suite, phone screen glowing, trying to piece together what was happening without having access to any of the levers anymore. No cards, no keys, no upgrades, no scripts, just consequences. Joyce placed her phone face down once more, her tea still warm in her hands. Outside, the sky had cleared. The storm passed. A soft wind stirred the branches near her porch, where the empty suitcase now stood quietly waiting, like an artifact returned to its rightful owner. She looked at it, then back to the living room, then back to the phone as it buzzed again. Unknown number, no voicemail, just a ping. She didn't pick up. She didn't need to anymore. It started with a string of pings, muted vibrations against Joyce's coffee table as she refolded a set of linens that hadn't been touched in years. She didn't rush to check them. She finished smoothing the last corner, placed it neatly in the cedar chest at the foot of her guest bed, and closed the lid with care. Then she returned to the phone. Declined. $274.83. Beachside Resort, F&B service. Declined. $68.50. Watercraft rental add-on. Declined. $519. Resort suite extension. One night. Each alert was wrapped in the same quiet formatting: white background, red font, tiny gray disclaimer. Her eyes traced each line like a seamstress checking her stitches. The credit card freeze had finally reached the surface. She selected all three and forwarded them to Greg with a short note. Misuse. Document, please. No need to flag again. I've already pulled permissions. Before she even hit send, another buzz arrived. This one wasn't from the bank. It was the resort. This is a courtesy notice that your account on file has declined a recent room charge. Per policy, we will allow a 90-minute grace period before deactivating suite key access. Joyce let out a slow breath. It wasn't satisfaction, exactly. It was clarity. Her decisions were now shaping reality, physically, logistically, legally, and the timing couldn't have been better. She imagined the front desk, Tyler walking up with his habitual confidence, Monica a step behind, sunglasses on indoors, Ava on her phone, tuned out, the trio moving like they always did, entitled to smooth sailing, until they weren't. Try it again, Tyler said, holding out the key card. The young man behind the desk didn't flinch. Sir, I've already attempted it twice. The system won't override a suspended account without new payment on file. We have a card on file. My mother-in-law handles it. I understand, the clerk said, reciting from policy muscle memory. But the primary account holder filed a dispute and removed billing authorization. We're required to follow up internally before allowing any continued use of amenities or lodging. Monica stepped in, her voice tight and acidic. Then call her. This is some kind of mistake. She wouldn't just... The clerk interrupted gently. The alert came from her directly. Ava looked up from her phone, the sudden quiet drawing her attention. The irritation on her parents' faces wasn't new, but the helplessness was. Something in their posture was off. They looked like people trying to balance on sand. Tyler's jaw clenched. You're telling me we've got less than an hour before. We're locked out? Yes, sir, unless alternate payment is submitted. He pulled out his phone. Fine, I'll call her. But the screen lit up with a message. Call failed. Voicemail full. He cursed under his breath. Monica turned sharply, already texting her own mother. The text read, Need to Zelle me $600 for now. We'll square later. No response. She texted again. Mom, please, urgent. Nothing. Ava, watching all of it, asked quietly, Wait, why is Grandma doing this? Neither of them answered. Back in North Carolina, Joyce sat at her dining room table with an old manila file labeled Emergency Contacts. The names were outdated, the numbers scratched out, replaced, circled again. Doctors, schools. Monica's number, circled twice. Tyler's written in Sharpie next to a now disconnected landline. She opened her phone and logged into her medical portal. She navigated to the Contacts for Emergency Notification tab and began removing names one by one. It didn't take long, just a few taps. The list grew shorter. Then it was blank. At the top of the screen, a quiet confirmation. You have no emergency contacts listed at this time. She didn't add anyone new. Instead, she closed the browser, pulled the manila folder into her lap, and fed each page into the shredder by her side. Slowly, deliberately, one at a time. The teeth buzzed softly as decades of obligation turned to ribbons. Her phone lit up again. Tyler. Mom. Seriously, what are you doing? Monica. This isn't just cold, it's cruel. Ava. Please answer. I don't even know what's happening. Joyce didn't respond. She stood, walked to the window, and opened it slightly. The air smelled like clean pavement and magnolia leaves. She reached up to pull the string on the window shade. The fabric rolled downward in a single elegant sweep, dimming the light. Behind her, the phone buzzed again. One more alert: suite access revoked. Guests notified, locks updated. The airport smelled like overbrewed coffee and sweat. The kind of stale churn that clings to the end of every vacation when the fantasy peels off and real life seeps back in. Tyler adjusted his backpack and stared at the self-check-in kiosk. The screen blinked blue, then red. Error. Contact airline agent. Try yours, he muttered to Monica. She shoved her sunglasses into her purse and stepped up to the next kiosk, punching in her confirmation number with long acrylic nails that clicked too loudly against the touch screen. Red screen again. Invalid status. See desk attendant. Ava stood behind them, her suitcase upright like a third sibling. Why are we always the ones holding everything up? She asked, not quite loud, but just enough to spark that vein in Tyler's temple. Let's just go to the counter, Monica said, already smoothing her hair and tightening the wrap on her cardigan like armor. They approached the priority line. Tyler flashed his ID with authority, the way people who've flown too often do when they expect convenience to fall in line. The woman behind the counter scanned it and looked down at her screen. Her brows pinched slightly. I'm sorry, Mr. Franklin. This reservation is flagged. Flagged? He repeated. She turned the monitor discreetly toward her. Yes, it shows reversal due to a fraud claim. We can still get you on the flight, but I'll have to route you through standby economy. No upgrades, no baggage coverage under the original account, and no lounge access. Monica blinked. What are you talking about? My mother-in-law's... The agent didn't flinch. The account linked to your original booking has been closed and disputed. That reverses the itinerary status and elevates the transaction for internal investigation. Tyler leaned in, lowering his voice. We have a teenager with us. Are you seriously saying we're flying back on standby? Ava looked up, face pale, brows tight with something she rarely wore. Unease. I just want to go home. The agent gave a patient smile. We'll do our best, ma'am, but right now you're 3 deep in standby, flight's oversold. You may be split. Monica reached for her phone. We'll just book a new one. That's fine. Tyler didn't stop her, until the card was declined. Monica blinked, tried another, same result. I don't understand. These were cleared yesterday. They probably flagged it when the suite charges failed, Tyler muttered, pulling out his own phone. But his Apple Pay refused the same charges. The reality began to settle like airport dust. They weren't just inconvenienced, they were grounded, dependent, unwelcome, baggage-heavy in more ways than one. Behind them, the line of irritated travelers grew longer. The soft sound of boarding announcements echoed over the PA system, other people heading home with clean itineraries and untouched reputations. Tyler turned toward Ava, who was seated now, scrolling blankly through her phone. She looked like she was trying to disappear into the screen. We're figuring it out, he said too quickly. She didn't look up. Back in North Carolina, Joyce sat in her sunlit study, flipping through a dog-eared copy of The Silent Power of Boundaries. Her phone rested on the corner of the desk, its screen lit up with missed calls. She tapped the voicemail app, held her finger over the latest message, and deleted it without listening. Then she opened her voicemail settings and updated the greeting. Her voice was clear, firm, unmistakably calm. You've reached Joyce Franklin. If this is a request for help, please contact someone you haven't insulted, ignored, or taken for granted. Have a safe journey. She saved the message and shut the phone off entirely. A moment later, the landline rang, the old cordless one she kept mostly for emergencies and robocalls. She didn't answer that either. It rang 4 times, then clicked to silence. Joyce rose, walked into her kitchen, and poured herself a fresh glass of water. As she turned to head back into the living room, her eyes caught something odd. Her suitcase, still packed, still ready, had shifted slightly. Not from movement, from intention. It was time. The Uber pulled into the cul-de-sac just after sunset. The sky still held a smear of orange above the rooftops, but the street itself had already gone quiet, porch lights flickering on one by one, lawn sprinklers ticking to life. Tyler stared out the window at his mother's house, where the porch light was already glowing softly. Familiar, automatic. I don't care how mad she is, he said, unbuckling his seatbelt. She'll talk to me in person. Ava didn't respond. She sat stiffly in the back seat, earbuds in, but with no music playing. Her arms were wrapped around her knees. Monica was already out of the car, dragging her carry-on across the curb like it owed her something. "Can we not do the drama thing?" Ava muttered as she stepped out. Tyler ignored her. He walked up the familiar front steps and tapped the keypad out of habit. 4126. Joyce's wedding anniversary. Always the code. Always the access point. Invalid entry. Try again. He blinked, then re-entered it. Invalid entry. Locked. Please wait before retrying. What the hell? He turned toward Monica, who stood with arms crossed. "She changed the code?" she asked. Ava walked up behind them. "Is she even home?" On the front door, taped neatly beneath the brass knocker, was a single sheet of paper in Joyce's handwriting. "Not your crash pad. Try humility." Tyler pulled the note down and crumpled it without reading it twice. Monica stepped forward and banged her fist on the door. "Joyce!" she shouted. "Open the door! This is ridiculous!" Across the street, Carolyn, a gray-haired neighbor in a floral blouse, stood on her porch watering potted plants. She paused mid-pour, watching the scene like she was witnessing a scandal finally confirm itself. "Seriously?" Monica hissed. "She's humiliating us in front of the entire damn neighborhood." From inside the house there was no movement, no flicker of light through the curtains, no muffled footsteps. It was like the house had already accepted her absence. Ava backed away from the door and sat on the bottom step. She pulled out her phone and dialed. Straight to voicemail. Joyce's message played, the same one she'd heard before. "If this is a request for help, please contact someone you haven't insulted, ignored, or taken for granted. Have a safe journey." She hung up before the beep. 2 states away, Joyce raised her glass in a small clink against Marcia's. They sat on the porch of a rental cottage in Bar Harbor, wind brushing across the water below. The sky here was navy and clean, the stars sharp. The kind of night that didn't feel like a reward. It felt like release. "I thought you were never going to send it," Marcia said, nodding toward Joyce's phone. "The final one." Joyce unlocked the screen, pulled up the PDF she'd signed that morning. Termination of co-signed credit and insurance agreements. Franklin, Tyler, DOB 1983. Filed. Processed. Irreversible. Joyce took another sip of her drink. "I wanted to wait until they were back in state. No excuses that way." Marcia smiled. "No strings, no cards, no contacts. You didn't just kick him off the boat. You sank it and swam to shore." Joyce didn't laugh, but she did smile. It was time. Her phone buzzed once. An alert. Bank access revoked. Final confirmation received. She slid the phone across the table, screen down. Back in North Carolina, Tyler sat on the hood of the Uber, shoulders slumped, staring into the dark window of the locked house like it owed him an apology. "Are we seriously homeless right now?" Monica snapped. "She knows we flew in. She knows we don't have the car. She's just gone?" Tyler said nothing. Ava sat beside her suitcase, scrolling. Suddenly, she paused. Guys?" They both looked at her. She held up her phone. On the screen, a short Instagram boomerang, 2 older women toasting glasses of wine on a porch, waves visible behind them. One of them was unmistakably Joyce. The caption read, "North looks good on us." Monica stared at it. "She's in Maine?" Tyler didn't blink. He just exhaled slowly, the kind of breath a man takes when he's finally grasping the size of what he lost. Not just comfort, but credibility. His name wasn't on any deed, not on the accounts, not on the plans, and now, not even on the door. Joyce sat at her kitchen table. The morning light filtered through the gauze curtains, soft and golden, casting long lines across the oak surface. In front of her sat a fireproof lockbox, a half-drunk mug of green tea, and an accordion file nearly bursting at the seams. She didn't need to open the freezer this time, though that's where the oldest records had once lived, pressed in plastic beneath frozen vegetable bags and lasagna trays labeled in Sharpie. A system from another era, back when paper was safer than the cloud. Now, everything sat neatly sorted by decade. She pulled the first stack from the 2000s folder. 2004, tuition payment, UNC Charlotte, $18,232. 2007, Tyler Franklin, insurance premium, full annual, $3,100. 2008, title transfer, used Honda Accord, signed under Joyce Franklin. She reviewed each page with the quiet intensity of someone handling evidence, not for revenge anymore, but for reconciliation with her own memory. Every receipt was an entry in the ledger of what had been silently given. No interest charged, no repayment expected, no credit taken, until now. She began scanning them into her laptop one by one. No commentary, no folder names like proof or what they owe. Just past generosity, closed. Each file was time-stamped, then backed up to a secure drive. She clicked the encrypt button and watched the lock icon flicker green. A lifetime of unpaid debts had just become historical record. She sat back, stretched her neck, and exhaled long through her nose. Then she opened a second tab, her legal planning portal. She had started the draft months ago. It had lived in limbo under the file name Legacy TBD. Now it had a new name, Legacy Final Intent. She typed carefully, as if each word might someday be read aloud at a table where Tyler and Monica were no longer invited. I, Joyce A. Franklin, intend all remaining assets, accounts, real estate, and physical property to be distributed as follows. Her cursor hovered. To Ava Franklin, contingent upon sustained independence and completion of higher education, matching contributions will be made to a fund of her own creation. She moved down the page. All remaining retirement accounts, investments, and real estate equity to be transferred to Marcia James and her legal heirs. And finally, no co-signing, power of attorney, financial guardianship, or emergency responsibility shall be granted posthumously to any member of the Franklin household unless revoked by the undersigned in writing. It wasn't cold. It was correct. A knock at the door startled her slightly. Greg stepped inside once she waved him in. He was dressed as always, neatly pressed shirt, casual slacks, leather folio in hand. Not flashy, just professional enough to make things feel official. "You ready for this?" he asked. She nodded. "Been ready longer than I let on." He notarized each page as she initialed, the process rhythmic, almost sacred, like closing chapters not with a bang, but a pen. When they were done, Greg tapped the final folder. "No one can contest this. Not legally." Joyce gave a small smile. "They'll try emotionally, but I've disconnected the power source." Greg chuckled. "What do you want me to do with the backup copies?" "Keep them where you'd keep your own." He nodded and packed up his things. Before leaving, he paused in the doorway. "It's rare to see someone do this before the damage. Most people wait until the fight comes to them." Joyce's voice was steady. "That's the trick. Stop being the insurance policy they assume will pay out." After he left, she walked to the kitchen sink and rinsed her teacup. Her hands were calm, movements precise. She'd always believed that clean exits were an art, not a reaction. She opened her phone and logged into her bank portal. Then she opened a new checking account, basic, single user, no joint access, no overdraft buffer, no emergency contacts. She named it simply Joyce A. Franklin, private. She transferred enough to cover only what she needed, just her. The screen refreshed with a chime. Confirmation complete. She clicked Finish and stared at the balance. Modest, intentional, untouched, and for the first time in years, truly hers. She stood, walked to the fridge, and tore down the fading whiteboard with everyone's birthdays and emergency numbers. One last detail and she'd be done. She picked up a pen, walked to her notebook, and wrote on the final page, "That's the last loose end." The envelope was cream-colored and folded in thirds. No return address, no stamp, just slipped into the brass mailbox slot of Joyce's front door like it belonged there. She had found it that morning, wedged between an electric bill and a catalog for orthopedic sandals. At first, she thought it was a sales flyer, until she saw the handwriting on the front. Grandma, not Joyce, not Miss Franklin, just that word, written in careful block letters, pressed slightly too hard into the paper. She opened it at the kitchen table, the same one where she'd digitized her past the week before. The light outside was muted by clouds, the kind of sky that looked like it couldn't decide whether to rain or reflect. The letter was short. I know I laughed when Mom made that joke in the car. I know I didn't say anything when she said it was just easier without you. I took a picture of the suite before we even checked in and tagged it, "Just Us." You weren't in it, and I didn't think twice. But I saw your post, and I saw what came after. I don't want anything from you. I just wanted to say I see it now. I'm sorry. Ava. Joyce folded the letter once more and laid it flat on the table. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just sat still, her fingertips pressed lightly against the paper as if taking a pulse. There was remorse there, tentative, untrained, but real. It was the only thing that had arrived from the family since Maine. No call, no text, no tantrum disguised as negotiation, just ink and regret. She placed the letter in a drawer and didn't touch it for the rest of the day. A soft knock came at dusk. Not urgent, not demanding, just present. Joyce opened the door halfway. Ava stood on the porch. No suitcase, no parents, just her. Her hair was tied back messily, and she wore the same hoodie from the airport. Her phone was nowhere in sight. "I'm not here to move in," she said quickly. I didn't want to text." Joyce nodded once. She stepped aside and let Ava in. The house was exactly how it had always been, neat, warm, intentional. But something about the silence inside it felt different now. It wasn't a waiting silence. It was a chosen one. They sat in the kitchen. Joyce boiled water. Ava watched the steam rise from the kettle but didn't say anything. When Joyce handed her the mug, she took it with both hands like she remembered how. They drank in silence. No sugar, no talking. Just warmth passed hand to hand. After several minutes, Ava spoke without lifting her eyes. "I don't want a second chance." Joyce said nothing. Ava continued, her voice quiet. "I want to earn it back. Whatever's left. I know I don't deserve it yet. But I want to try." Joyce looked at her over the rim of her cup. Her voice, when it came, was not unkind, but it had no softness to spare. "Start with silence," she said. "Then action." Ava nodded. "Okay." Joyce stood and collected the empty mugs. She rinsed them without ceremony, then turned back to Ava, who remained seated. "You can come by," Joyce said, "but you call first. And you come alone." Ava stood slowly, the weight of the conditional welcome pressing into her shoulders, but not breaking them. She walked to the door, paused, and turned back. "I like the suitcase photo," she said. "It was the first time I saw you look taller than everyone else." Joyce didn't respond, but her eyes didn't move away until the door closed. Later that night, Joyce opened her drawer and reread the letter. She slipped it into a folder marked, "Not closed yet." Then she sat at her desk and stared at the empty chair across from her. She wasn't sure who would earn the right to sit in it again, but for the first time in a long while, she wasn't dreading the possibility. She was just waiting for the right kind of return. Joyce opened the front door just far enough to meet Ava's eyes. "You're early," she said, but her voice wasn't stern, just observant. Ava held up a bakery box. "Scones. The good kind. Not from a chain." Joyce stepped back and let her in. The visit had been scheduled, a first. Ava had called 3 days earlier, asked politely, even offered a window of availability like it was a job interview. Joyce had said yes, not warmly, but yes. Now the two of them sat in the living room, a pot of tea steeping nearby, a stack of 3 overstuffed photo albums spread between them like archaeological dig sites. "Only the green ones are chronological," Joyce said, handing Ava a brittle leather-bound volume with peeling edges. "The blue album's where I started tossing things in after your grandfather passed, so it's chaos." Ava opened the first page and let out a soft laugh. "You labeled the year with masking tape?" Joyce raised an eyebrow. "Permanent marker outlasts hashtags." They worked slowly, page by page, sunlight warming the carpet through the window. It wasn't nostalgia, it was cataloging, and Ava never once reached for her phone. Halfway through the second album, Ava paused. The photo was off-center, a little blurry, but unmistakable. Joyce, 20-something, standing with Ray at a terminal gate marked Newark. He had his arm around her, and they were both laughing, wide open, full-lunged joy. Neither was looking at the camera. Joyce saw the photo and smiled softly. He made some joke about flight delays being a blessing, because then he got more time with me. You look, Ava struggled for the word, weightless. Joyce didn't answer right away. She ran her fingertip across the plastic cover of the photo. That's how you arrive, she finally said. Together, not dragging someone, not leaving someone, just arriving. Ava didn't respond. She looked down again, blinking fast. I never knew this version of you, she said after a moment. The you before all of us. Joyce's gaze didn't shift. That's because you never looked beyond the free ride. The words weren't harsh, but they landed. Ava's eyes dropped to her lap. She took a long breath and nodded once. I did expect you to always just be there. Like the house, or Wi-Fi Joyce closed the album. That's the thing about people who show up for you. You think they're infrastructure until they vanish. They sat in the silence again. Not awkward now, more like two people learning how to breathe in the same space at a different rhythm. After a moment, Joyce stood and walked to the side cabinet. She pulled out a white notepad and wrote something in pen, then handed it to Ava. Rules: visits by call only. 24 hours notice minimum. No, just stopping by. No keys, no money, no errands, no excuses. Ava read it all, then folded it gently and slipped it into her pocket without protest. Joyce poured more tea. You can help with the scanning project next time, she said, almost offhand. Ava nodded. Okay. Joyce met her eyes. But I'll be watching. I know. Joyce sat back and looked out the window. The magnolia tree had started to bloom again, white blossoms forming like stars. Some branches would break, but others, they'd bend and hold. The wind off the campus lawn carried the faint smell of fresh mulch and printer ink. An odd pairing, but fitting for a day like this. Joyce stood just inside the shadow of the new building, her hands clasped gently in front of her, as a line of folding chairs filled with students, faculty, and local reporters waited beneath a white event tent. She hadn't dressed for attention. A navy blouse, simple slacks, soft loafers, the kind of clothes that let you disappear into a crowd, unless someone called your name, which, today, they did. Please welcome Ms. Joyce Franklin, the dean announced from the mic, his voice warm with admiration, not theater. Ava was in the back row, seated next to Marcia, who had worn her church-proud outfit and dabbed her eyes the moment Joyce stepped forward. Ava didn't cry, but she smiled, wide, unapologetic, and clapped with both hands. Joyce approached the podium with a kind of quiet authority, her heels clicking once on the makeshift platform. She didn't fumble with notes. She didn't need them. I didn't donate for a plaque, she began, her voice steady, clear. I did it because someone once handed me a refurbished computer in a cardboard box and said, I thought you might make something of this. They had no idea what they gave me that day. She paused. But I do. And I'm giving it back. Behind her, a navy blue curtain fell away to reveal silver lettering etched in brushed steel across the entrance to the building. Franklin Center for Applied Technology in honor of Joyce A. Franklin, educator, architect, donor. The audience erupted in applause, not polite, not obligated, genuine. Across town, in a cramped living room with a mismatched couch and too many remotes, Tyler stared at the local news broadcast in stunned silence. The anchor read the caption twice. Joyce Franklin, longtime anonymous donor to Tri-County Tech, revealed today as the force behind nearly $800,000 in educational technology grants over 2 decades. He set the remote down. Monica walked in, holding her phone, face twisted in disbelief. You seeing this? The woman ghosts us, strips every dime of access, and now she's the poster child for generosity? Tyler didn't respond. She tapped her screen. Look at these comments. Everyone's acting like she's a saint. Monica scrolled for a beat longer. I'm going to say something, she posted. Funny how some people only get generous after cutting off their own family. Perspective. It didn't land the way she hoped. Replies poured in. Maybe that family should have said thank you. Sounds like she finally found peace. She earned the right to choose where her kindness goes. Monica's post was ratioed within the hour. Back at the college, Greg found Joyce outside the reception, where she stood beneath a small oak, sipping lemonade from a compostable cup. "You made the news," he said, handing her his phone. Joyce looked at it, then handed it back without flinching. "Let it do what it does," Greg chuckled. "They'll never recover the image, you know. Not from this. You didn't just win, you outclassed them." Joyce shook her head. "That was never the point. But it's a nice side effect." She didn't disagree. Inside the building, the ribbon had been cut. Students were already streaming into labs wired with state-of-the-art equipment. Some donated, some funded, some directly selected by Joyce herself. No one there knew what she'd endured to get to this point. They didn't need to. She had left breadcrumbs in silence, stitched change into infrastructure, and today she'd walked across a stage they didn't even know she'd built. Ava found her after the crowd had thinned. She didn't say much, just stood beside her and looked up at the building, jaw tight with something between pride and apology. "You made it yours," Ava finally said. Joyce looked at the glass doors, the sun catching the name etched across them. "No," she said. "I made it useful." They stood there for a long while, watching as the next wave of students walked through a door they didn't realize had been unlocked by a woman who once wasn't allowed through, and behind them, the wind picked up again. Not dramatic, just directional, like it had somewhere to go next. The airport was quieter than usual for a weekday morning, just the low murmur of announcements overhead and the steady shuffle of rolling luggage echoing off polished floors. Joyce stood near the check-in counter, her new suitcase parked at her side. It was smaller than the last one, sleek, matte navy, with wheels that moved like butter and a retractable handle that didn't stick. She had bought it last week, not out of necessity, but out of intention. Something clean, something no one had ever borrowed. She handed over her ID and confirmation number to the gate agent, who glanced up with a practiced smile. "Headed to Portland?" "Yes," Joyce replied, the corners of her mouth lifting just slightly. "Just me." The agent tapped at her keyboard. "Looks like you've got points to burn. Would you like to upgrade to first class?" Joyce didn't hesitate. "Yes, I would." She reached for the boarding pass as it printed. The paper was warm, newly inked, a small thing, but satisfying. She folded it neatly into her leather wallet and stepped aside, letting the next passenger move forward. As she walked toward security, a young woman just ahead of her turned slightly. She looked to be in her 20s, maybe a college student. Her sweatshirt read Ohio State, and her backpack had more keychains than compartments. "I hope this doesn't sound weird," the girl said, adjusting her strap, "but you just have this presence, like you've got it all figured out." Joyce offered a small smile. "I don't know about all that." "No, really. You look like someone who knows exactly where she's going." Joyce considered that for a moment. Then she said, gently but without apology, "You get there faster when you stop carrying other people's baggage." The girl blinked, then smiled. "I'll remember that." They parted at the security line. After clearing TSA with ease, Joyce made her way to the gate. She didn't stop at any of the shops, didn't grab a magazine or overpriced water. She'd brought her own tea sachet in her handbag and a slim novel tucked under her arm, something she'd been meaning to read for years but never quite had the time for. Now she did. She had all the time in the world, and she didn't owe it to anyone. At the gate, she sat quietly by the window and watched the crew finish refueling. The plane gleamed in the mid-morning sun, silver and grounded, for now. She liked that image. Potential, not yet airborne, but fully prepared. When the pre-boarding call was announced, she rose with the small group of first-class passengers. No fanfare, no flash of luxury, just calm, competent movement. Her steps were slow, not from age, but from decision. She had nothing to rush toward, and no one trailing behind her asking what came next. As she boarded, the flight attendant greeted her with a cheerful, "Welcome aboard." Joyce nodded, then turned into the first row. Her seat, 1A, was already waiting. Window view, extra legroom, quiet. She placed her carry-on in the overhead compartment and sat down, smoothing her slacks and settling into the seat with a kind of practiced ease that felt earned. No tightness in her shoulders, no mental inventory of who might need her next. The seat next to hers remained empty. She didn't check the manifest. She didn't speculate who might fill it. She simply adjusted the armrest, unwrapped her tea sachet, and placed it on the tray table, ready for the in-flight hot water. Outside the window, the tarmac shimmered faintly in the sun. Inside, the air was cool, recycled, a familiar kind of stillness that she'd once associated with exhaustion. But not today. Today, it felt like a beginning. She leaned back into the headrest and closed her eyes for a moment. Not to sleep, but to feel the stillness. No dependence, no noise, no unpaid debts following her into the cabin. Just her, just the sky ahead, and a path cleared by. Her own hand. The path curved along the main coastline in gentle arcs, worn smooth by decades of salt wind and quiet feet. On one side, the Atlantic stretched out, wide and sure, its blue-gray surface capped with white froth that winked beneath the afternoon sun. On the other, tall beach grass rustled like pages turning slowly, never in a rush to end. Joyce walked beside Marcia, their steps unhurried. Neither woman spoke for a while. The air between them didn't need filling. It was enough to walk and breathe and feel their joints cooperate. "You ever think," Marcia finally said, adjusting her scarf against the breeze, "about how damn lucky we were to learn computers before everyone else figured out how powerful they'd be?" Joyce gave a small smile. "Every time someone my age says they're too old to figure out their email." Marcia chuckled. "Too old is a scam. We're not outdated. We're underutilized." Their laughter merged with the hush of the surf. Joyce reached down and picked up a flat stone, ran her thumb over the cool surface, and then let it fall gently back to the sand. She didn't need to keep souvenirs anymore. She was finally in a life that didn't require proof of progress. Marcia slowed as they neared a weathered bench overlooking a rocky inlet. They sat. A pair of gulls landed a few yards out, shrieking briefly before quieting. "I've been thinking about legacy," Joyce said after a pause. "How much of it is what we leave behind, and how much is what we stop letting follow us?" Marcia looked over. "You mean guilt?" Joyce tilted her head. "And expectation. And stories that were never mine but somehow got pinned to me like I was the coat rack for everyone else's weight." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her phone. A single unread message blinked softly on the screen. It was from Ava. A photo. Ava stood in front of a local coffee shop, grinning in an apron with her name tag slightly crooked. Her hair was pulled up, no filter over the image. She held a to-go cup with "First Day" scribbled in Sharpie across the sleeve. Joyce looked at it for a long moment. The smile wasn't performative. It was awkward, honest, the kind you gave when you weren't trying to impress, just trying to begin. She didn't respond, not yet. Instead, she saved the photo to her camera roll and tucked the phone away. Marcia didn't ask. She didn't need to. Back at the cottage that evening, Joyce sat at the small wooden desk near the window, her laptop open in front of her. The screen showed her final monthly financial statement, all zeros. $0 credit card balances, no automatic transfers pending, no co-signed loans, no open disputes, no overdraft protections on accounts that weren't hers, just clean columns, a quiet ledger. She scrolled once more through the page, then clicked Log Out. The screen faded to a blank login prompt. She closed the laptop. The fireplace beside her crackled softly. No TV on, no background noise, just warmth and wood and wind tapping faintly at the pane. She stood and crossed the room, her steps measured. On the small hallway wall outside her guest bedroom, she had hung 3 framed photos earlier that morning. The first, her standing alone beside her carry-on, the caption still unspoken in the glass. The second, the etched nameplate from the Franklin Center for Applied Technology. And the third, her and Marcia, smiling in the coastal wind, heads thrown back in something close to joy. Not one of them included Tyler, or Monica, or borrowed smiles. They weren't missing. They were no longer required. Joyce turned out the hallway light and moved into the kitchen, where the tea kettle had just begun to hiss. She poured the water slowly, letting the steam rise in soft spirals, then stirred her chamomile and leaned against the counter. She took a long sip, set the mug down, and glanced once more at the quiet house around her. There were no signs of intrusion, no shadows of arguments, no unpaid balances lurking in drawers or inboxes, just her life, exactly as she had shaped it, with lines drawn, debts settled, and exits chosen without ceremony. She turned out the last light, the main stars flickering like tiny lanterns beyond the window, and just before she climbed into bed she whispered, not to the room, but to herself. "They left me at the airport. I took off anyway." She pulled the blanket over her shoulders, "and landed higher than they ever will."